Okay, so now that you've been introduced to primitives and kind of a few things, now let's kind of get more serious about the stuff. Let's go into object mode, highlight all these, and hit delete. Number one thing that I always suggest to students, never, never use certain primitives. Always use primitives that make sense. Primitives that have quads in them only. Okay, so let me kind of go over that. If you go over here and click on a ball, you're going to get a ball that has quads, yes. And quads are four-sided geometry. But you're also going to get it with a polar cap. Okay, this polar cap is also called an extraordinary vertice. So if I go to the vertice mode and just click on this vertice, for example, and I click and drag it up, I get this. A polar cap or an extraordinary vertice. An extraordinary vertice comes when more than 3 or 4 edges meet into a vertice. So all these are, like this one for example, is not an extraordinary vertice because it has 4 edges going into it. Okay? If I went to go to face and extrude and then kind of like scale this just a little bit, I now have an extraordinary vertice because this now has 5 going into it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, extraordinary vertices are not a bad thing. They are definitely a plus in certain areas, but this many is ridiculous, and triangles are bad right off the bat. Everything that you must model everything that you model should stay in quad form. That way it subdivides out. That way it's sculptable later on in other programs. Okay, let's go back to object mode and delete this. Now, so what maintains a good quad structure? Well, always a cube. Second, for anything weird, I would say a torus. And of course, the age-old plane comes in handy every once in a while. These 3 are very good. The rest of them are junk. What else comes in handy? Well, this little thing right here also maintains good quads. Okay. You can find that these are quads. Well, if you look around on the geometry, you'll find no extraordinary vertices, and you'll also find that there's no triangles whatsoever. That's how I know they're good. Now, when you're first starting out, let's say this would probably be your best bet. Learn to manipulate this cube like no other, and you'll be very prolific in Maya. Okay, for example, let's kind of look at this. I can make just about anything up here. And this is going to be the assignment for the new student. We're going to make all these other ones based on this. Okay, the square can easily be made just by making a square. Shift D on the keyboard will duplicate the object and move it with the move tool. To make a ball, a very easy thing can be done using mesh smooth. Okay, that is my low poly ball. And of course, if I go to mesh smooth one more time, I have a higher poly ball. Okay, next object. What's this? Okay, let's go back to the square, Shift D, drag it over, and let's make this one right here. Well, that can be done by going to the top of it to face mode, clicking on it, extruding it, and scaling it in. Okay, I do that also on the bottom. I extrude it, scale it, and move it in. Okay, now what will happen is I go back to object mode, click on it, mesh smooth. Now I have a low poly version of this object. Before we go on, let's kind of compare it. Okay, so duh, that one actually works out. Don't have to worry about it. Okay, let's look at the circle, sphere. Let's also look at this one compared to this one. Okay, you can obviously see the difference in geometry. Good, bad, good, bad, always good. Okay, we don't have to make a polyplane, but let's also make this. Let's grab our cube, Shift D it, and this time let's grab all the vertices that appear on the top. Okay, this is angle of selection. Kind of get deadly at that also. So if I move it like this, highlight all the vertices and scale in, I now have that pyramid shape. If I want to smooth it, I do two things. Insert an edge loop here, here, and also take the face on the bottom and extrude it and scale it in. Okay, now when I go to object mode, I can now mesh smooth this. And I get a nice cone shape. I'm going to continue this in the next video.